Good morning. I'm Rosalie Schaefer, and on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Manatee County, I welcome you to our program today. First, I want to thank the library for making this room available. We usually hold our topics at the Bradenton Women's Club at 1725 Manatee Avenue West, right across Wears Creek Road on the Wears Creek Bridge on the left side as you go down Manatee Avenue. But as you may be aware, they had storm damage and they lost their roof and the interior was pretty soaked. But we hope to be back in there in January. Today we're going to talk about a growing issue of concern: online and telephone fraud, identity theft, hacking, spoofing, and phone scams. The internet highway and your telephone have become dangerous places. According to the 2016 FBI crime report on cybercrime alone, Florida had 21,000 victims who lost a total of $88 million, the third highest victimization rate in the country. The number of schemes to separate you from your money has become a major problem, and these criminals keep getting better and more sophisticated in their technology and methods. We had an experience a few months ago when our treasurer got what she thought was an email from me telling her to make a payment to a bank in another state. Now that looked kind of funny, so she emailed me and I said, no, I did not send you that. I think it was for about $2,000. And we went back and forth. At one point, Lorraine, who's sitting right there, emailed the crook and she said, we know you're a crook. But so anyway, this is happening to a lot of people. And sometimes they disguise what they're doing so well, you could almost bet money that it's from an outfit that you deal with all the time. We are very pleased to have with us today two speakers who are very familiar with these scams and what can be done about them. Lieutenant Robert Andrews, Manatee County Sheriff's Department Crime Prevention Division, and Kimberly, nicknamed Scotty, Camacho of the Bradenton Police Department Crime Prevention. They will share with us how these scams work and how we can avoid becoming victims. Following their presentations, we will have questions from the audience. At that time, we ask you to use the microphone on the floor so that your words get into the METV taping. The program will be shown on their website and on their television channel in another day or two. Okay. And let's have Mr. Andrews, Lieutenant Andrews first.
Thank you. On behalf of Sheriff Wells, thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure to come and talk to you. Now, as you're sitting there, Rosalie pointed out a really important statistic, that Florida ranks third in the nation for the number of victims of identity theft or computer-related crimes. And you may be sitting there wondering, why is Florida so high? Well, we got to think about it in terms of we have some of the highest rates of retirees in the nation, and we all grew up in a different generation. My generation was different, then your generation was very different. And in your generation, people's words were their bonds. When people called you, you shook hands, that was the sign of the deal. There was no ill will that was perceived to be happening from that, so you took that person at their word. So these people, most of them are overseas, prey upon that. So when they call you, and there's a ton of phone scams, I kind of like to interact with the audience. So how many have gotten the IRS phone call? Oh yeah, that's one still very popular. They call you and they tell you you owe money. Now, if you didn't know, the IRS does not call. They don't email. They just send you a nice letter saying you owe us money, please give it to us, okay? We do not come and arrest you for an IRS issue, okay? That's totally something separate. And then you also have the really newest one that we hear a lot of lately is the grandson that's in jail. I see heads shaking out there. Yes, they call you and say, I'm little Johnny. I'm locked up. I'm in Mexico. I'm in this country. You got to send $2,000 right away or they're going to hurt me, okay? And what they're preying on is that emotion, that you're taking that word right then and there, that it is your child or your grandchild that's in need, and that you're going to willing to spend that money, okay? But there's a couple red flags with any of these scams. The first one is, a lot of them tell you to go to Walmart, Target, wherever, and get a gift card or a Green Dot card, okay? That's one of your first warning flags, because a legitimate organization is not going to tell you to go out and get a gift card to pay them with, okay? And the other thing they're also looking for is their personal information. And unfortunately, in today's world, your personal information is out there. And it's not really a matter of if you're going to be a victim of identity theft. It's more of a matter of when. How many people have heard the Experian issue, the hack? How many people have gone online with Experian to see if they are a victim or potential? Not very many. I went on the line with Experian. I found out my information is probably out there. So, but you got to go out there. You got to put yourself out there. You go online with Experian. You put your last name in, the last 6 of your social, and they tell you whether or not you've been a victim or potential victim. And they sign you up for a year of free credit monitoring. But they also offer you, with that, is the ability to lock your credit, okay? And what that means is by locking your credit, no one can take out credit cards or loans until you unlock it. That's very powerful. How many people here have grandkids? Almost everybody. Have you heard of synthetic identity theft? This is scary for your grandkids. So what the bad guy does is he takes your grandchild's social security number, which they can get wherever their parents put it out, doctor's offices, school boards, wherever. So they take that kid's social security number, they attach it as an authorized user on a credit card account. And so what happens for 6 months, while that card is in good standing, that kid develops positive credit. So after about 6 months, they can now take out lines of credit on that child's social security number and rack up all sorts of debt. And what they do is they spoof the address so the bills go wherever they want it to go, along with the credit cards. And what happens is, obviously, the kid's not really in real life applying for credit. So it may be 15, 18 years before the kid, when he grows up, gets into life, and tries to get credit and finds out, I've got all this debt that I never applied for. So that person can go for years. So we got to be proactive about protecting our information. So, like when you get these emails, how many's got the guy from Nigeria saying, I got $27 billion and I'm willing to split it with you? Yeah, we've all got that. But obviously it works because people fall for it. And I tell people, if you didn't participate in like Publishers Clearinghouse or the lottery, well, you're not going to win it, okay? And if it does sound too good to be true, it is. So don't participate. Don't give out your personal information. When you're online, like with email, if you get an email from someone, what should we do? Delete it. Don't open the links. You ever heard of a keystroke logger? It's malicious malware that's downloaded. If you click on a suspicious email and open it, you click on the link, it downloads a program to your computer that watches your keystrokes. So what they can do then is when you go to log on to Bank of America, SunTrust, or wherever you bank, they get your username and your password, then they can log into your bank account and siphon off the money. Okay? So some of it's very simple, common sense. Give me 1 second. Okay? If you get something suspicious, you delete your emails. If you get phone calls that are suspicious or seems too good to be true, stop. Get the phone number that you're going to call them back at. hang up the phone, call the police department if you live in the city, call the sheriff's office and ask. And we'll more than likely guide you through it. We'll tell you whether or not this is going to be a potential scam, where we've heard of this scam before. Like Rosalie said, they're coming out with new and different ways of attacking it. Now they do it through text message. They've gone away from emails a little bit. Now they'll send you a text message saying, click on this link to claim your prize or whatever it's going to be they're trying to get you to solicit into. They're getting more and more creative. Let me take your question.
Could you repeat their question into?
Do you always have to open the link? If you open the link, then you click on it. Like if you open the email, there's usually an embedded link in there. If you click on it, that's when it downloads the keystroke logger. But what we're going to tell you is if you see the email and you're not expecting an email from someone, just delete it. Don't even open it, because what happens is if you open it and you move your cursor over it and you didn't mean to click on it, but you accidentally do, now you've downloaded it. So just delete it. Yes, ma'am. You can block it, but a lot of times we'll do like with spamming. They'll come from random email addresses. And like with the telephone frauds, if you've seen the new ones, the new numbers are calling in it, they all look like they're local numbers, right? That's because they have what they call random number generators. They can generate these numbers that look like local numbers to entice you, because you're like, oh, I was waiting a phone call from, Lowe's or somebody. That looks like it's a local number. It may be Lowe's that's calling me. And then you pick up the phone and it's not. And if you didn't know, like with telemarketers, how many times you got to say hello on the phone before someone finally picks up? 3, maybe 4 times. If you pick up the phone and you say hello after one time and no one responds, just hang it up. Because once they get you to give me 1 second, once they get you to verbally acknowledge that that's an active line, they'll keep calling. But if you don't acknowledge it, that's an active line, they'll eventually just take you off the list. And then you have the do not call list. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I just noticed that with my phone solicitations, the number shows as recent. I didn't necessarily answer it. And I'll try to call them back and it says this number is disconnected or no longer in service. And that's almost every one.
Yep. It's the random number generator. They create this number that it looks like they're calling from, but it's not an active number. It's to get you to answer the phone because
It's always 941.
Yep. Because they know that if they call from a 1-800 number, you're going to, that's a telemarketer, I'm not going to answer. But by making it look local, they can entice you to answer that phone and start the process. I thought there was another question. Okay. So going on, so we talked about the emails, the telephone frauds. The best way is just to equip yourself, the knowledge, education. How many people are here have heard of Nextdoor? Nextdoor.com or the Nextdoor app? Okay. Are you on it? Yeah. Okay. For those of you that aren't, we really like that. Nextdoor is kind of like Facebook, like I call it, where it's social media for your local neighborhoods where you can interact with your neighbors. The sheriff's office has an account. So anytime we get something new or, like a scam that's coming out, we like to push out that information to you guys to educate you guys. We also push out classes that we do. We're doing active shooter classes because unfortunately, this is the day and age that we live in. We do classes that go further in depth on identity theft, frauds, and scams. But we also push out like crime trends. If your area is having a spike in vehicle burglaries, we'll push out that information to you guys. And we also push out, there's a new scam that comes out because the latest one we just saw was Publishers Clearinghouse, where they've gotten really good. Well, they'll send you this letter, and they have doctored it. It looks exactly like the real deal. They have doctored it, the logos and everything. They'll mail it to you saying you've won Publishers Clearinghouse. You're going to win $7 million. All you have to do is send us $7,000 to cover the taxes. And there's a caveat. They also tell you, do not tell anybody. So that's another warning sign. If they tell you don't tell anybody, but you won $7 million, what's the first thing you're going to do? They're going to tell everybody. This is great news. But those are 2 warning signs. So what they do is they get you send that $7,000, and they'll send you another letter eventually. What happens if you do send that 7, saying, well, it's not enough. You got to send more. And they'll keep fishing you further and further along, okay? And it's like I said, Publishers Clearinghouse. If you never played it, then how are you going to win it, okay? And they're not going to ask you for $7,000 to cover the taxes. They're going to take it out of your winnings. So if it's too good to be true, don't get into it. Let us know. We'll gladly share that information with you. Yes, ma'am.
In order to report something as scam, you have to highlight.
Highlight it where?
You have to
So the question was how to report it as spam? Okay, so what you can do is you can go into your settings on your internet browser. You can set up that email address it came from. You can, like the one lady said, you can block it, or you could identify it as a spam email. Okay. If you don't know how to do it, how many people have grandkids? I see you already know where I'm going with that. If you didn't know, grandkids are free tech support. Okay. So you can get them, if you're not computer savvy, get them to help you out. But yeah, you can go in, it depends on what internet browser you use or what email service you have, but you can go in there, you can block that particular email and identify it as spam.
Because, I mean, you report it as spam, and they don't tell you, they don't give you the choice on some of the new ones blocking.
Okay, so that would be that independent email provider that you have to work through. But once again, once you see it as spam, just delete it. Just go straight to delete. I mean, I have a personal email account, and I'm sure like everyone here, I get tons of spam, and I didn't even open it. I just go down and click, and just delete them because you don't need it. Because there's a lot of malicious stuff out there. I mean, we got malware that goes in and tries to steal data. I mean, that's a lot of times how these hackers get in, like with the Target hacker that happened about a few years ago, where they went in. Target had 2 websites that were linked. One was for the consumer, the everyday consumer, and one was set up for their vendors, where the vendors could go in, submit their bill, and then Target would go and pay them. Well, what they didn't know, there was a backdoor into the consumer side of it to where they can get all that data, all your credit cards, your debit cards, and all those numbers. Okay, so those things happen. So that's why you got to be proactive. Do you know you get your free credit report at least once a year? Do you check it? If you didn't know, you get your free credit report once a year. You can go online, see what type of activity. If you don't freeze it, you should probably think about freezing it, especially if you're not going to use credit for a while. If you've got things paid off or if you got the car that you need, freeze your credit. Don't open yourself up to having your identity stolen and put out there. Do you have a question, ma'am?
Don't you have to freeze it with all 3 reporting agencies?
So the question is, do you have to notify all 3 reporting agencies to freeze it? Yes, I believe so. Okay. So, but you go online with each individual one and do it. Now you can do the credit monitoring. We don't recommend any particular one, but you do have the ability, if you want to go do credit monitoring, you can, which will notify you if there's a problem. Yes, sir. So the question is, we're talking about defense and then what's happening with the offense. With the offense side of it, the FBI actively investigates all these incidents that are reported. Out of the numbers that Rosalie quoted you, I could say that's probably only 50% of the reported incidents. And this is the problem we're going to have, is most of these scams and frauds are overseas, Eastern European, the Middle East countries. We get very little cooperation out of it. I mean, we do actively investigate them for prosecution, but when they're located overseas, it's very difficult to get cooperation from those organizations. Every once in a while, like with spammers, you'll see the federal government files criminal charges on these prolific spammers, but there's other organizations out there that do this, and it's a constant effort. But we feel the best offense is the defense, to where we educate everyone about these particular scams, what you can do to protect yourself to prevent from becoming a victim. Because the less victims we have, the better it's going to be for everyone. Yes, ma'am.
Is there any way to tell if a call is from overseas?
The question is there any way to tell if the call coming in is from overseas? With the random call number generator, unless they're calling from the true number, probably not. But the first thing you should listen for, if you do talk to them, is the accent. I mean, that's going to be the dead giveaway, okay? And like when you're reading emails, look at the grammar. If the grammar is very poor, like commas, spellings of words are out of place, structurally it's not sound, that should be an immediate red flag that's a suspicious email. Because you'll get them to where they'll send you an email like it's from your bank, saying your bank account's been compromised. And they want you to log in to verify who you are and to reset everything. But if you take that moment, stop, read it, and read it critically for the grammatical errors in it, you'll find that there'll be grammatical errors. But don't click on those links. Okay. So I'm going to turn it over to Scotty here.
Hi, my name's Officer Camacho, better known as Scotty. I've been with Bradenton Police Department for the last 5 years, and I've been in law enforcement for almost 22 years. Everything he gave you is absolutely correct. He touched on several charities, several scams that I have brought information about. If you did not get to the table, there are lots of little papers over there about all different types of scams. We could talk probably until next week about scams and fraud. It happens, it's out there. How many people have had any kind of identity theft or scam that happened to them or somebody they know? I have to raise my hand because it's happened to me. As of 2 days ago, my husband's debit card was compromised. We don't know how. It happens almost every day to people that you may or may not know right around you in our area. The easiest things that I can tell you that when it comes to scams and frauds are if somebody is asking you for money that you didn't solicit to talk to them, or they're asking for your information, more than likely, it's a scam. If there is a company, let's start with charities. How many people have gotten the, we're from the Police Benevolence Association, or we're representing your local law enforcement agency, and we're looking for donations. Anybody gotten those calls? Okay. If you want to donate to your local law enforcement, we appreciate that, and we appreciate your support, but do it to your local law enforcement agencies. If you're not sure, you want to call and check and see if we're doing any kind of fundraising or things along those lines, contact your local department wherever you are. And this takes place across the country, so it doesn't matter if you're going back home up north and this happens, contact the agencies there as well. Most agencies have a way that you can donate directly to your agency. If it's another charity that you think you've heard of, it sounds familiar, maybe it has something to do with breast cancer or Walk for This or Relay for whatever, you can contact those companies directly. We all want to help. We all want to give. But let's do them directly to the companies. That way you know you're dealing with legitimate places. Question?
Just what Joy FM Share-a-thon's been going on, and they just thought that's supposed to be really good, wonderful, legit.
Absolutely. Joy FM just had their share-a-thon, but they do it over the radio, and they ask you to call them. They're not calling you to get solicitation. So if you got a solicitation from Joy FM, how could you respond to that? If somebody called and said, "Hey, I'm from Joy FM, and we're doing our share-a-thon, and we'd like to have your support for our radio station," what's a good response?
Give me your telephone number and I'll call you back.
Okay, she said, "Give me your telephone number and I can give you a call back." Well, can we look up Joy FM? We can find out what their local number is. I'd be happy to give. I'll contact the station myself at a later date. I'm a little bit busy. Look up the number yourself, because if I'm your solicitor and I give you a number, could that be a fake number? It could be. So make sure that you're contacting the number, you're looking it up in your local, we still do actually have phone books. I know a lot of people don't get them anymore. You actually have to go pick them up from the post office, but there are phone books. And you can go online and Google the number for the location in your area. So you look up that number yourself instead of getting a number from them. Yes, another question.
I usually say send it to me in the mail.
Okay, you can have them send it to you in the mail. If you get the name of the company, it's better to go, like I said, go online and get the address. So you're not giving, okay, ma'am, if you'd like me to send that to you, what's your address? So they're still getting a little bit of information from you. So tell them, I'll contact the company. What's the name of the company? And do your own research. That's the biggest thing, is doing your own research for things like charity frauds. He touched on grandchildren scams. My family members were a victim of that. I had a grandparent contacted, and they said, "Hey," it was my grandson's name that they used. And they said he'd been in an accident and he needed them to send some money so that they could get medical care taken care of before they could leave the hospital. And so they said, "Okay, well, let me call you back. Call me back in 5 minutes." So they called me and said, "Hey, is Gray still around? What's going on?" and found out Gray was at work. It wasn't a matter of him being injured, and I said, that's a scam. So we were able to defeat that by doing a little bit of research before giving out any information. Yes, sir?
Is Charity Navigator reliable?
Fairly. Better Business Bureau as well. You can contact those types of websites and resources to find out about charitable, good, responsible charities. Also talking about charities, you may want to find out how much of their donations go to whatever you're donating to. How much goes to actual breast cancer research, or how much goes to whatever their charity is. Let's see. We've talked about the You've Won scams. Nobody is that lucky. I'm just going to kind of touch base on this because this one really hit home for me when I had a call from a young lady who asked me to go speak with her father. Her father was getting mail in large amounts of all kinds of You've Won, and she was very, very concerned. So when I got to the house, I happened to pass the postman coming out of the house, dropping off the mail, and he said, "Did the daughter call you?" And I said, "Yes." He goes, "Thank goodness." And he went on his way, and I kind of thought that was odd. When I got to the door, he answered, opened it up. We went in, sat down and talked, and on the coffee table right in front of me was a stack of mail, and it was this high. And I'm like, that's a lot of mail. He said, "Yeah, the mailman just delivered it." It was this high daily. Because what happens is when you enter those contests, those drawings for raffles, here, win a cruise, and it's at like a carnival or things like that, that information goes onto an advertising list. And that advertising list then gets sent out and circulated, good and bad. There are legitimate companies who are legitimately trying to advertise and get your business, but there are also frauds and scams that happen from that as well. So when you enter a contest, just know that you're putting your information out there. How many people believe that their information is still safe and secure and nobody has it? Good. Okay. If you look at it as your information is out there, okay, with the Equifax issue and so on, our information is out there, so we have to be on the defense. The best ways to deal with this is by keeping an eye on our bank accounts, checking them daily, not just, once a week, once a month, checking them daily. It used to be we balanced our checkbook once a month. Not anymore. You need to be checking on things daily, because the minute you see a anomaly in your credit report or your bank account, you need to jump on it and get it changed, get it fixed as soon as possible. Report it. We've talked about the fact that we want to report these things. On the back of each one of these sheets, it tells you how to report it, and report it to FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, okay? And the lieutenant had mentioned that the FBI is dealing with this as well. Because we have so many scams, and they're mostly overseas, it's very, very difficult to work on just what's happening here, just what's happening in Pinellas County, Hillsborough, Sarasota. So what they do is, if you go to ic3.gov, that is the website for the FBI, that is where they're gathering all of this information, and it tells you how to report on there. What they do is they look at all the numbers. Where are we having the biggest problems with this? And then they can target areas with the best resources. IC and the number 3.gov. Okay? And FTC as well. So that's how that gets reported. Like he said, a lot of these are overseas, and they're very, very difficult to do things about. A lot of times, unfortunately, when people are scammed, their money's gone. The problem is, and especially with our older population, is they're afraid to say, "I've been scammed." It's a matter of, sometimes it's pride, sometimes it's scary because I don't want my family to think I can't handle my finances and they need to take it over for me. That's not necessarily the case. I've been scammed. You know, we had our bank account, our credit card compromised. It happens to everybody. And it's something that we have to have reported. It needs to be reported when it happens to you. So the best things you can do is, one, contact the police department, let them know what's going on. Two, and that's if they've gotten money, if they've gotten your information, okay? If you realize after you hang up the phone, you go, oh my gosh, I think I just got scammed. Make a police report about it, okay? And then you want to contact the Federal Trade Commission. You want to contact all 3 creditors. There's a lot that happens after an issue occurred. That's why I gave you guys these books, okay? And he talked about freezing your credit on page 7 in here. It tells you how to freeze your credit. It's right in the middle of the page, how to freeze credit. And you contact each of the bureaus. The phone numbers are in here on how to do that. I'd suggest everybody doing that. Okay, I had a question over here.
I was a victim of identity theft on 2 occasions, one in 2001 and 2007. Neither one of those was a very pleasant experience. Not that I lost any personal funds, but I followed the directions of what I was supposed to do. A, call the local police department. B, call the FBI. I called the FBI turned me off completely. They said, how much did you lose? At that time, it was $7,800. They said, oh, we're very sorry. We're only interested in greater than 10,000. We don't have enough manpower. The problem went away. In 2001, we changed the banking laws, I believe, where you could no longer open an account unless you were known by the banker. Bank of America continues to open accounts in California for anybody who signs on to the internet without any regard for whether you are who you are. Second time, same thing, call the FBI. The FBI basically hung up on me. They said, oh, how much did you lose? This time it was $68,000. No, we're only interested in greater than $100,000 because we don't have the manpower. So I hung up and I called back. And instead of saying I had an identity theft, the second time I called, they said, I'd like to report a case of money laundering. It went right to an agent, they took all the information, and they presumably pursued it. Could care less about identity theft.
That's an interesting response. I'm surprised. What we have found lately, that things have changed because this is a multi-billion-dollar industry now, because it is growing. Responses are a little bit different, but they are. It's an overworked industry with not enough people to pursue it. So I'd still say call, make the report. You have done at least your part in trying to get things rectified. Yes, ma'am.
I had to cancel my debit card, and I went to the for a face cream or something and get your free sample.
Mm-hmm.
And I went on site and I gave them my credit card. It was like $4.95 for mailing. And then I checked my debit card, and they were actually taking out $89 a month. And the bank caught it. So I had to get a new debit card. But I guess, my friend gets mad at me because they do that all the time. You trust people, but I didn't ask to have them bill me every month, and they kept doing it.
And you will find if you follow up on things like it's a free trial. You sign up for the free trial. If you don't cancel it within the 30 days of the trial or 60 days or whatever, they will start automatically billing you. Publishers Clearinghouse, the gentleman that I told you that had the stack of mail, when I started going through his stack of mail that he received daily, about the 4th one down, and believe me, he had won by page 5 of the email, he'd won over $5 billion if we added it all up. The Publishers Clearinghouse was in there, and he was in collections with Publishers Clearinghouse. He wanted to do the Publishers Clearinghouse because that's a legitimate thing. He had ordered 3 magazines, and he had done this in like January or February of the beginning of the year. So by March, he was getting collection notice for magazines, and he only wanted them for 1 year. He'd only ordered them for 1 year. At the April, May, I think he was getting the second collection notice for subscriptions. And by the time I got there, he was going into collections for a subscription that he didn't even want, because they were doing exactly that. He had got them for 1 year, paid for them for 1 year, but they were going to continue it because he had not canceled it. He had not then paid the subscription, so he was being sent to collections. So you have to really watch those things. It may be a legitimate company, but if you're not following the fine print of how to cancel it, you can get caught up into that as well, where they are either automatically deducting, and you may not even realize it, or they're going to harm your credit by doing the collections type issues. There are lots of ways of combating this. One of the biggest things is paying attention. It's being alert to what's going on your credit cards, what information you're putting out there. If somebody's asking you for information, do not give it out. Find out if the company is legitimate before you say anything. Tell them you'll get back with them. Yes?
Lately having a weird thing happening. I'm getting magazines that I didn't order, don't want, don't need, throw in the trash as soon as I check my mail. So I'm just curious if that's some kind of scam.
She's getting magazines that she did not order, does not want, and just sending them into the trash. And she's wondering if that's a type of scam. It may be. I don't think so. I think that sounds more like when we get the Publishers Clearinghouse, or a lot of kids now, they're part of their fundraisers for schools are sign up for magazines. And I had a friend of mine do this for me, and I didn't know it. They had signed me up for, because I'm a photography buff, they had signed me up for a photography magazine. And it was a great magazine, but I never signed up for it, and all of a sudden it started showing up. And then it starts into I kept getting them even after the year, and it goes into the subscription issue that we just talked about. So I had to call her. I finally figured out where it came from and told her she was going to need to cancel that because I wasn't going to continue the subscription. But she had done it for me because she had kids that were in school, and it was a fundraiser for them, and she thought it'd be nice. So it can be something along those lines.
Now, could you speak about things that I think some of us might be aware of? It drives me crazy. When we do have a credit card, as far as the scams at the gas station, when you go out to eat, and some of the restaurants here have the little things where they do a lot of them still take the credit card in the back, which is another good thing. So could you just talk about those safety, the best way out of the scams at the gas stations and in the restaurants?
Absolutely. Gas stations are one of my favorites. How many of you are watching our steps? How many have step counters, and we're trying to get some extra exercise in? Get out of your car and walk in and pay for it inside. That is the best deterrent I can tell you as far as for scams at the gas stations. There were 7 found in Sarasota just this last month. They're getting them into the gas pumps, and you wouldn't even realize it if they were there. If you're going to use like an ATM, you can take a hold of the card reader and shake it. Make sure it looks like it belongs there. If it's slightly loose, I wouldn't use it. When you're at the gas pump, look to see if there's those little pieces of tape on the sides. You want to make sure that those are secure. And if they aren't, I went to one of our local gas stations where I live, and the tape was kind of there, but it was detached. I could tell it wasn't on there. And I went in and said, hey, the tape on pump such and such 13 isn't attached properly. He went, so? I no longer use that gas station. So that's one thing for gas pumps. The best way to avoid it is go inside. It's harder to put a scanner inside the store unless it's an employee than it is outside. If you're going to use them outside, use the center aisles where it's a lot more visible. It's a lot less chance of there being a scanner.
They have that, most of the gas pumps have something on it
saying that it's secure.
They do, but they're getting in there. It is happening. So using the center aisles where they're very visible to the rest of the, to the store, okay? And as far as restaurants are concerned, you want to make sure that if you've gone to a restaurant, you want to check, keep an eye on your account. You can't, I like using the one at the table because I'm in control of it. Nobody's able to look at my card, photo it, etc. I can deal with it, and I can put my PIN in. You want to make sure that there's nobody looking and things like that, of course. But then, you know, you're not giving it off to somebody. So that's the best ways of dealing with that. I think at this point, we're opening up to questions.
Well, yes. We have our two speakers' presentations, but actually, it's become a question and answer period. And so we'll pretty much continue, but I'd like to bring up Mr. Andrews, Lieutenant Andrews, so that you can direct your question at one or both of them, and we'll continue our question and answer period. But I would like to ask one before I'm going to take my privilege here to ask a question. I keep getting these calls every day, and they're from all over the country, and I'm on both of the do not call lists. So I'm wondering, how can I get these calls to stop? The same ones will call almost every day, and I keep telling them I'm not interested.
Have you renewed your do not call registry since you initially did it?
No.
Because you have to renew. After so long, it falls off, and you become an eligible person again. So, and there's actually two. There's the national, and then there's a statewide, I believe it is. And the other thing is, if you don't know the number, just don't answer.
I'd like to also follow up on that, is if you have used a business, say it was Sears, and you've I went and purchased a washer and dryer at Sears. I have opened myself up to getting Sears phone calls because I have used that company. The do not call list will prohibit things from outside sources, but when it's businesses that you do business with, you can open yourself up to those kind of calls, even though you are on the do not call list. So just be aware of those things. Read the fine print. That's the best thing I can tell you.
Charities and political organizations exempt from the rule. I read that somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah, I believe that kind of falls under the freedom of speech. So, yeah, they're going to be exempt from that. And like Scotty says, once you establish a relationship with them, that excludes them from the do not call registry.
The best thing we can tell you is keep repeating. If you don't know the number, don't answer it. And know that there are spoofing they do what's called spoofing numbers, where it looks like it's and it can say Manatee County Sheriff's Office or City of Bradenton Police Department on it, and it isn't us. Just be aware of that.
We'll start from here and we'll just work our way down the. So, sir.
I don't remember which state it was in, but last summer we were traveling. I want to say it was Kentucky, but I won't sort of. They have now, on the gas pumps, they have a sticker. I don't know whether it's county or state, but it goes right over where the key goes, and there's one that goes on the seal around it.
Yeah.
And it tells you right on there, if either one of these are broke or missing, don't use them.
That's what we.
They sealed these up so that nobody can get in and put these card readers in.
So the question is questions about the stickers on pumps and the fact of, like, in certain areas, they put the stickers over the access point for the credit card. That's an industry-wide standard, okay? The local law enforcement doesn't regulate that part of it. It is up to the individual vendor to do that. 7-Eleven does it. There's several others that do it. It's very compliant upon them. But the problem with that is you can buy those stickers online. So if you're the bad guy, those key pumps are universal. So they can go in, open the pump, break that seal, close it, put a new sticker on. So, and because they're getting really crafty with it. A lot of them have gone to Bluetooth technology on the skimmers. So instead of having to come back, open the pump, get the data, and then close it again, they can just pull alongside within range, download it on a Bluetooth data dump, and then leave. So one thing you can do is when you come near a gas station, if you're suspecting it, look at the Bluetooth signal on your phone. If you're picking up a Bluetooth Bluetooth device very close to you, that pump may have had a Bluetooth skimmer installed, so you may want to avoid it and let the clerk know. So, but there are some new pumps that are coming out that as soon as they're tampered with, it shuts the entire pump down until a technician comes out. But those are expensive, and they're slowly coming out. But the big thing is if you look at that pump, if it has a seal that's broken, one, you don't use it. If you suspect anything that's wrong with it, you know, you can check your Bluetooth, or you can just use cash. Cash is still king.
Pay inside.
It seems like every time I fill out a medical form for a doctor's office or of some sort, I have to give my social security number. And I'm wondering how good the security is on all these medical sites. Do I really have to provide that?
Have you ever challenged that? The question was, if she's filling out forms, medical forms at the doctor's office and so on, if she has to provide that social security number, or how secure are the medical facilities? Again, I would ask my doctor's office, do I have to provide this to you? You already have it. You've done that previously, correct? And I've had people that have flat out refused to doctor's offices to give them. They have it enough for Medicare and those purposes, and not give it, and they've given them an alternative number. So it would be a matter of checking with your doctor's office and kind of pushing the issue. And as far as security, those facilities have certain protocols that they're required to follow. We do not secure them. As law enforcement, we don't go in and check how secure it is. So again, it would be a matter of asking, what protocols do you have in place to secure my information?
I mean, with the online things, if you're asking them, you're going to have to talk to probably their IT guy that knows, you know, are they using an encrypted website? Are they using firewalls? And they may not tell you that because they don't want to have their security compromised. But one thing I tell you, anytime you give out any of your information online, whether you're filling out like a loan application or anything, before you do anything, look at the browser bar. You should see a lock symbol. If it's a lock symbol, it means that website's encrypted, okay? If you don't see the lock symbol, that's more than likely a fictitious website. They're trying to get you to put your personal information in there and scam it from you. Ma'am. Yes.
I'm interested in the issuance of synthetic credit cards. We have 5 grandkids that are the age of 10 all the way down to 1. My question is, can their parent put a block on their social security number until they reach a certain age?
Yes, they can freeze the credit just like you can freeze your credit. The parent can freeze that information for them.
Do they have to do it every year, or can they say, I want this to be until they're 16?
It's frozen until they unfreeze it.
Okay, thank you. How would they
You have to go, the question is, how do you freeze it? Like in the book that Scotty gave you guys from the Federal Trade Commission, page 7, you got to contact each individual credit bureau, give them the social security number of the person that you want to freeze, and they will freeze it. Sir.
Medicare is now in the process of getting rid of all of our social security numbers, which they allege will take place March, April, May of next year.
Yes. I have told a number of people, as far as when you carry your cards with you, if you're carrying Medicare, Medicaid cards, have the Social Security number on them. I've seen people scratch out the first and leave just the last 4 showing. If it's a medical emergency, they're going to treat you anyway. You can give them that information later. I wouldn't carry anything that has my Social Security number on it.
Yes, ma'am.
Are there certain credit cards that are better to have than others? Like, I had my identity stolen one day, but within 24 hours, both companies that I use called me and canceled my cards and sent me new ones. And I wondered, do all of the credit cards companies do that?
Most of them are the question was which credit cards are better? Most of your credit card companies, especially your bigger banks, are going to be proactive about it. They're going to do some sort of monitoring, which basically there's an algorithm in their programming that develops a customer relationship management software that looks at your patterns of buying. As soon as it sees something that would consider outside that pattern, it's going to flag it and they're going to contact you. So you just got to kind of see which banks talk to them when you apply for a credit card. When you call them on the phone, and if you do it in person, ask them, how proactive are they? What do they do? You know, do they actively monitor the activity in your card for suspicious activity to be proactive? I'm not going to promote Bank of America, but I have my one credit card through Bank of America. Anytime I leave town, if I don't notify them after the third transaction, I get locked and I gotta get the text message out and say, no, it's me, it's okay. But that's, yeah, so it's just one of those things you need to open those lines of communication, find out what their patterns are.
I will tell you that using a credit card over a debit card, credit cards are safer to use. With our recent breach, this is our new pattern. Using a credit card instead of a debit card and then paying off the credit card then as soon as we get home, we plug it in and pay whatever it was. But credit cards are better to use than debit cards.
Yeah, our credit card company wants us to let them know when we're going to be out of town, so that they won't honor purchases from California when, you know, we're actually spending money in Bradenton. And, you know, that's the way they have it.
Yeah.
Talking about when you were in the restaurant, you're using your PIN number, and you're referring to your PIN number for your credit card, or for your debit card?
That was a debit card at the time, yes. Anytime you're using a debit card where you're entering PIN numbers, you want to look for several things. One, how many people are around you? People will do what's called shoulder surfing. He's putting in his PIN number, and I might be on my phone, standing in line, looking like I'm doing nothing, but I'm actually recording him using his PIN number and looking, you know, then I can try and look at the card as well. So you don't want to get credit cards out until you're making that purchase, and you want to cover up when you're doing your PIN number. You want to look at things like if you're at an ATM, look, if there's a pamphlet holder, a lot of times they'll put small cameras on those to see where the PIN, to be able to look at the keypads. So you want to pay attention to what's going on around you when you're using PIN numbers and things like that.
Yes, ma'am.
Online banking is convenient. Is it safe?
The question is online banking safe? It's only as safe as you make it. And what I mean by that is, do you go to Starbucks and log on to the free Wi-Fi and then use your mobile banking app? Okay? Do not use your banking apps on public Wi-Fi systems. Okay? You stay off of those things. And then once in it is your password strength. You should be doing one capital letter, small letters, mixture of numbers in there, special characters. Make that password strong. The stronger the password is, the better it's going to be. And then keeping that password secret. Like we talked about the emails. Don't click on the malicious links, so when you do log in, they steal your data.
We do like the fact that people use online banking because instead of checking our bank accounts, you know, when it comes in the mail, we're checking them daily. So that is a great thing as far as the online banking. They work really hard at keeping those secure and encrypting them, like he was saying before, too.
Oh, let me finish the room here and we'll come back. Yes, ma'am.
You're talking about Bank of America, and I had Bank of America credit card. 3 times they had closed the account, issued me a new one saying your account may have been.
Yes.
I resent that. I think that they should call me and say, hey, we can do this charge, so that, but no. And I have to go through the inconvenience of everybody that has that credit card, and, you know, I go, yeah, that's my time. Whatever.
I got the perfect answer for you. Okay. So the question or the statement was about when the bank contacts you, they tell you that your account has been compromised and they're going to issue you a new card and you've had it done 3 times. I just had it done. And if you read the email, it says that an undisclosed merchant, someone outside the bank, probably had a data breach. And they don't know how many or who exactly was affected. So what they're going to do is anybody that's part of that data breach, they're going to cancel those card numbers, reissue new card numbers. Data breaches are common. I mean, if you look at the news, it seems like almost every day an organization, whether government or private, is getting hacked and they're stealing that data. Think about all the online transactions you do and you use that credit card. That vendor stores that data infinitely. If they get hacked and lose it, the bank has a vested interest. So it actually is a good thing that the bank is doing that. I know trust me, I just had it done, so it's a royal pain, but it's a good thing. Yes.
And there are all sorts of, they're protecting you as well. Because they've been hacked. So one of their vendors has been hacked. So they don't know how many, or if your card was breached. But to protect you from that breach, that's why they're issuing you a new card. So that's protection for you so that you aren't going to be.
Think about it this, if
Hacked
they didn't cancel that card and that card was allowed to be accessed illegally and used for fraudulent purposes, how much money is lost to the economy through that? Because either the vendor or the bank's going to take the hit, and that money's lost money. So I would like to think that we would want to prevent that card from being used, prevent the bad guys from getting that free money or that free item, and keep that money in our pockets. Yes, ma'am.
Well, this is another Bank of America story, but it's on the pro side, because we got, our organization debit card somehow, I don't even know how, because we don't even use it. And the one that got hacked was never used, it was only used at the post office, to pay the post office box fee. And so then I got the call, I got an email from Bank of America, the treasurer, and it said, you think your account was compromised, and they sent her a new debit card, and it was compromised. And sure enough, $4,000 in Apple Store purchases showed up, and they took, they stopped them. They stopped them because we only charge it here for places, so they know that. So I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, so the statement was about Bank of America. They caught a fraudulent transaction in Apple Store on an account that you hadn't used in a long time. So, I mean, that's proactive. It's great that the bank did that, was proactive, stopped that transaction. That's what we want. We don't want the bad guys to get those items. It is.
Go in and, meet with them and
It's an absolute, it's a big hassle, yes.
Ma'am?
Yeah.
When someone is deceased, are the credit monitoring companies notified, or do you have to notify?
The question is, if someone's deceased, do you have to notify the credit bureaus? Yes, you do. They don't automatically get notification of a deceased relative. My wife died about a year ago, so I had to do all that. I had to notify, I had to take off all the bank accounts, off everything. So yeah, that's something that, I mean, it's a big pain. You got to get the death certificates and share it with everyone. And so you just got to do it. I mean, you can't rely on them because a dead person's credit's perfect for them because they're never going to be able to find it more than likely. And then we'll take one more last question here.
Could you talk about I think they're called maybe RDIF or something like that, the little sleeves that they sell at AAA, put your credit card in, because what is that called where people can go by and just get your scanner and they can go, are those little envelopes that you buy, are they real? I keep thinking they are.
So the question was, is an envelope that's called an RFDI prohibitive scanner. So, and do they work? Yes, they do work. What it is they're going by, most new credit cards has an RFID chip in it. And so what they're doing is if they can go by with the right device, they can scan, steal that data, and clone a new card. So yes, that is real technology. It does prevent that from happening.
Let's give them a big hand. I think we learned a lot today. I know I'm going to be a lot more careful. We won't have a program in December, but our next one will be on January the 8th. It'll be back in the Bradenton Women's Club, 1705 Manatee Avenue, from 12 noon to 1 p.m. But we'll also be doing our luncheon at 11:30 before the program. And what we do is we have sandwiches, side dishes, and desserts. And all we ask is a donation of $5. And that's optional. If you prefer to just come to the program, you can do that as well. And we will have on that particular program, politicizing the judiciary. Are we losing the right to have a fair trial or to have decisions based on law, not politics? We will have a political science professor and a retired judge talk about the increasing political pressures upon judges. And we hope you can make that one. I want to thank METV for taping this program. And if you want to watch it on their television station, You can find out the channels on www.metvweb.com, and that'll also contain a link to their YouTube if you want to watch it online anytime you want. And it usually takes a day or two to get it up. But if your friends say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that," you can say, "Well, no, you haven't," because you can watch it online or on television. And we encourage you to join the league or sign our petitions on the table. Thank you so much for coming today. Thank you.